everyone. This is Sandy Williamson Productions, and I'm not sure if you can see me on the video or not. I'm waiting. Tonight I'm going to be joined by Ryan Mitten, owner. Hey, Ryan. Sandy.
What's up?
How you doing? I don't know where I am.
I know. I don't see you, Sandy.
I don't see me either. Hold on here. I'm not sure what's going on.
I know. I wish I could tell you, but I don't do enough of these myself.
This is terrible. I'm not.
Hey.
It's amazing how that works.
Yep. I think it happened the same way last time we did one of these too.
Yeah, probably. I'm not the best on this, Ryan. I'm too old for this stuff.
Oh man. So I couldn't do any better.
But again, obviously, thank you for being part of our our IG tonight and stuff. Obviously, you've been a gold sponsor for Spectrum Fitness Productions now the last 3 or 4 years. So, we're really appreciative, of your sponsorship. So just tonight, let's start with, just for the people that don't know you and don't know who you are and stuff, just a little bit about, TeamFFLEX, how you got started, what made you, how you got involved in our industry.
Yeah, so TeamFFLEX. Okay, so it's gone through many different names now. TeamFFLEX is the latest edition of the team. Everything kind of started with my own personal fitness journey years and years back. The first job I ever got was at the gym, okay, front desk at a gym, and after I had lost nearly 100 pounds myself. So I used to be in a spot, where I was quite overweight, decided to lose the weight, and I was like, all right, now this is something I might want to do to help people. And so then I eventually became a trainer for that same gym and, moved up the ladder. Years down the line, I decided, all right, I really want to, get into the bodybuilding space, competition space, and start coaching with competitors, specifically also online, okay? When I started doing online training, it was like a thing not a lot of people thought was even possible. I remember when I was at work and I would tell people, this is like years and years back now. I think maybe it was almost like 8 or 9 years ago now at this point. I would tell people I was going to start doing online training, and they would say it was impossible. There was no way to do it. You couldn't possibly train people online and be successful and, help them get results or anything like that. And obviously now, most people do online training. Most, other coaches, other teams, everybody out there, especially with the pandemic. So that is all thing that, ended up becoming to fruition. And, since then I've been coaching competitors trying to, really just expand and grow. And we coach worldwide for the NPC and the IFBB.
And that's what's nice. I mean, really, that is what's nice about technology, especially now that the NPC went worldwide, that so many of our coaches, are coaching our international athletes and vice versa. When I was in Brazil 2 years ago, one of the trainers down there told me she already had 12 girls that she was training for wellness, in the States. So, it goes both ways. It's just technology's made it easy. Obviously, it made the world much smaller.
Yeah, and it's, it's a thing where now you can really achieve, great results doing anything worldwide. And we especially figured that out last year, with gyms closing down and people having to work at home. And I mean, that's still going on this year even. There's still gyms that are closed, still people training at home, still people going to have to do prep this year at home. And, it is possible if you have the right framework.
Yeah, no, it is. And you're absolutely right, because, it's not just because January 1st came around that we're back to 2019. We're not. And, there's going to be a lot of areas. And I think the country's going to go, in ups and downs with waves and stuff, even at least for the first half of this year. So, I mean, you're, in California, there's still many gyms that are not open up inside. And, because I have a UFC that's real close to me. And every time I go by it, sometimes it's opened outside, sometimes it's closed. Back. So, you know what I mean? Athletes have really had to be creative this year, and trainers and coaches too.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Last year, I still have clients, honestly, that are still on like lockdown from gyms from the first lockdown that happened last year in March. Like they
Yep.
gyms back. And, back when this all started, I was telling people, hey, instead of rushing to buy toilet paper and water bottles, you should be getting yourself some dumbbells and barbells and things because they're going to be sold out. And it's still hard to get home equipment. But I'll tell you, the way that we do coaching, it's a little bit unique where we do it through a mobile app. So basically how it works is we can build routines. We can put all your workouts in there, all your sets, all your reps, exercises with instruction and tutorial to the point where you just open your app wherever you're at and you can do the workout. So, home workouts and all those things became very successful. We had a lot of people even that we put on Spectrum stages last year for contest prep that, they did their entire prep at home. They were training all at home. And I mean, it just becomes part of the world now to where that's something that, don't put off competing. In other words, just because you can't go to the gym or, this doesn't seem right, that doesn't do what you can where you are with what you have and get yourself on stage.
No, and you know what? And I will say, I was very, because obviously, I traveled everywhere last year, even though other than the international travel, everything else pretty much stayed the same. Once, July came around, I will tell you, I was amazed at two things. One, the number of true novice that I saw everywhere that I went in the country. We all know, it's hard enough to do the prep and, to manage your work and your career and your business and your family and stuff and get on stage. But to do it in a pandemic for the first time, I was just in awe of so many of those athletes. But then the quality overall of the athletes that I saw all year, especially when we got to the Olympia, yeah. I was truly amazed at what the athletes that came to the Olympia, but also to our nationals and our USA and stuff, what they brought to the stage.
Yeah, no, it's been an incredible learning experience. I remember all last year telling different clients throughout the year, because people were struggling. I'm going to be honest, people struggled on prep more than they normally do for a number of factors, being stuck at home, not being able to have any normal effect of a life, go out, do things, go to the gym even to socialize. And, people were struggling more and more. And I kept telling people all year, you know what? You're doing a prep that is something you're going to be able to tell your kids, your relatives, the rest of your family about for the rest of the time, because this is not a unique fact. Getting on stage and wearing a mask all day and then having your mask and, all those things that went on all last year and are going to continue this year, at least in some places, that's all stuff that it makes it way harder. So if you go through it, bodybuilding, I always say, it's the greatest personal development sport as it is, right? You go through the constant physical battle of, training and doing all the weight, doing the cardio, whatever's needed, eating a certain way. And then also the mental side, it's already the greatest personal development thing because you're being challenged 24/7, throw in a pandemic. And what can't you do anymore?
No, absolutely. Like I said, it just amazed me what athletes, were able to do, despite all the obstacles that, that our life threw in their ways this year. It really did. So, again, obviously Spectrum promotes mainly in Northern California, and we went everywhere. We had the whole, gamut. Yes, last year we went from having, an audience in July, all the way till the, Gov Cup in December, when we didn't have, we didn't have an audience at all. It was just the athletes, 30 people, and I think, we're going to see some of that, still obviously this year. The first show for Spectrum is going to be, we switched things up a little bit this year just because of trying to plan ahead with maybe, as the year opens up, we're going to have more, have more leniency and stuff. But with the Golden State, April 9th and 10th, and the reason we moved, because that's normally the Gov Cup, and the reason they moved it back to April was because the last year the NorCal went so well, being an outside show, or no, the Sacramento was the outside show. Now I'm getting them confused. But it turned out to be a nice atmosphere at the Lionsgate. lot of the athletes and even, you know, some of the audience and stuff came up to Ted and them and kept saying, you got to do at least one of your shows, you know, outside, because it was, I don't know why, it was more like you were on a picnic, a family, you know, a get together type thing. And so we're hoping that if we end up with no audience, that we'll at least, you know, we could do the outside, the Golden State in April. It'll be an outside show. And like I said, it's at the Lions Gate, right where the Sacramento was last year. And it worked out really, you know, it worked out really well for everyone.
Yeah. And I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right? And one of the things that I think is so good about, you know, all last year and, you know, moving forward, obviously, are the seminars that you guys do. These seminars that are at every Spectrum event, right? Like, these are such a great thing that athletes, you know, you got to take advantage of going to these things. And if you can have an audience at these events, you know, hopefully these things are going on where we're going to be able to break down just everything for athletes to really understand each fact of what's going on and all that. Because I know at the Olympia, you know, just having happened, crazy to say recently, right? Like, people got questions about what changes are there, right? What is going on with Bikini? What's going on with Wellness Next coming to Olympia this year? What are the big differences? And I mean, the seminars you guys do are, you know, that's where I learn most of the stuff that I talk about on social media, right? It's straight from you at your seminars.
Well, and I think you just segued into a really good part, because I've just done 2 workshops in Texas the last couple of weekends. And I think the one thing I think that Bikini is unique just to Bikini is when you're looking at figure, and even if now when we get into wellness, and women's physique and women's bodybuilding, you have to, I mean, to really get on that Olympia stage and do well, you do have to have like a certain structure. You know what I mean? You have to have a V taper, you know, that type. Well, Bikini is the exact opposite. You don't need a certain structure. And I think that's the mistake sometimes. And I think last year that did cause some confusion, because I think people looked at whoever wins the Arnold's, whoever wins the Olympia, and think that's what I need to look like. And so then they were tracing a structure, and it's not. It's just that structure that day was the best. And that's why you can have Angelica, you know, winning one show, Issa winning another show, Adela being right up there, Jen Dory being right up there, and then Janet Layla coming out of, you know, not like the dark horse, but, you know, she'd been at the second, she dropped to 6th, you know, one time and stuff, and then yet she came back. And if you look at Angelica, Issa, Adela, Jen Dory, you know, Janet, they all have different structures. It's really, I tell athletes, especially for Bikini, it's about getting your own body in the best that you can. What the parameters are is how much development you're going to allow your structure to get, and how much, you know, conditioning you're going to allow your structure to get, but not that you have to have a certain structure.
Yeah. And that's something that, you know, I'm glad you're saying this, because I know that, you know, with social media, and me and you have literally talked about this every interview that we've done, which is many, but I mean, we have to bring it up again. With social media, you know, people always are looking at everybody else, looking at all of the other competitors and saying, all right, I need to look like that person to do X, Y, Z. And if I look like them, I'm going to do better at the show. And if I don't look like them, well, I'm not good enough to compete. I shouldn't be on stage. I mean, the mental battles that people, you know, we've talked about it before as getting photo ready, right? Like, that's something you've said before, where everybody's looking at photos and they're going to try to be like that person. And then you see them on stage and they're just not where they need to be, and it doesn't look right. I mean, maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that is one thing. And it's funny because I just did a Zoom call right before you with one of our judges in Japan, just going over some stuff for wellness and stuff. And I had to keep reminding her, because, you know, I was using obviously photos from NPC News Online, but I had to keep reminding her that don't forget, these photos are making the athletes look a little bit bigger, a little bit tighter than we see on stage. So you have to train your mind to know, okay, this person looked a little bit softer, this person looked a little bit smaller. Because if you get yourself, like I said, if you get yourself photo ready compared to somebody else, you're probably going to be a little bit too big or a little bit too conditioned for whatever division you're looking at.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, you're also trying to replicate something that shouldn't be replicated, right? Because I mean, I bet if you took any of the top Olympians ever in the history of the Olympia, none of them would tell you they sat there trying to look like the guy before them or the girl before them, right? They would say they were becoming their best self and they focused on themselves and improving it. I mean, the interesting thought is you think about the people at the top, right? The people that win, who do they beat? Who do they compare to? They can't do that. They have to look at themselves and go back and figure out, how do I make that better? And how do I get that better to get on stage and do better next time? And really, the funny thing is, that's what happens at the top. That's what you should be doing at your first event. That's what you should be doing at your second event. That's what you should be doing when you look to go to nationals. That's what you should be doing, you know, when you're doing pro shows. It's not about, okay, how do I compare to her or him? It's about, how do you beat yourself and get better every day?
You know what? And you're absolutely right, because if you look at, obviously I've been around a long time, but when you look at the history of our sport, okay, and you look at, to me, again, this is Sandy's personal opinion, but two of the best in the sport was Iris Kyle and Dexter Jackson. And the reason was because they never made themselves, they never worked to get themselves bigger, 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 bigger. You know, obviously they worked on areas that needed to be improved a little bit, but it was, for both of them, it was always the quality, bringing the best quality of their physique back to that stage. Like Dexter didn't chase Kai Green, or he didn't chase Phil Heath. He just kept coming back with what was good for Dexter Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's huge. And I mean, obviously a big part that I think a lot of athletes still slack on, that I think is worth bringing up, is getting judges' feedback. Okay, and that's something that's really great at the Spectrum events, is like, you're basically getting the best feedback you can get doing a Spectrum show. You know, that's why I try to send as many athletes as I can to your guys' events, obviously, because, you know, you're getting the top level, Olympia level judges at a show in Sacramento, you know, Northern California, where you don't have to be on the Olympia stage to know where you can improve and know where you can get better, because they can get the feedback. So, I mean, that's probably worth bringing up too.
No, and you're right, because, and that is one thing that I will, you know, give my husband and John, you know, because they own Spectrum. Obviously, I'm not part of Spectrum, but they own Spectrum, and that's one of the things that they've always done. They've allowed me to bring judges in, you know, top national judges, top Olympia judges, into the Spectrum shows, so that athletes are judged by those same judges that will see them, you know, on the stage. Last year we had Tyler, you know, Mannion come in for the Sacramento, which was right before the Nationals. So you're not going to get better feedback, you know, than from Tyler. And, you know, the same thing this year, Tamer Elgindy was nice enough to come in and do the Gov Cup for us right before, the week before the USA and the Masters USA. You know, so and then again, like I said, it's so easy for the athletes then to get that little bit of feedback, that they can make tiny adjustments before they get on stage, you know, the following week or the next week.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say about feedback too, in my opinion at least, is that no matter what level you are, whether you are first timer, you know, true novice, or you are a pro, you should be getting your feedback. I mean, stay and talk to the judges if they allow you to do it that way. If you got to email, whatever it is, get your feedback from the judges, because that is really how you continue to advance no matter what, right? I mean, I'm sure that Olympia, even the top five of the Olympia are staying after to talk to you, right, Sandy?
Oh, absolutely. They're either staying after and talking to me, or they're going to hit me up really close to the next day. You know what I mean? And that is one of the things that I do tell, you know, I mean, athletes, you know, I mean, that is one thing I do like to do. I love staying after and talking to you. I always have. I mean, like I said, this sport has kept me young, and I'm always in awe of all the women that, you know, that I've interacted with throughout the sport. And so, yeah, like I said, I love taking back. I just see a question on there. It says, any advice for first-time competitors who are years away from the pro stage? Absolutely. It's just what Ryan said. It's about changing your physique and working on your physique. What you want to do is 6 months from now or a year from now, you want to see the changes that you made to make yourself better. And, you know, those changes will come. It takes some time, but I am telling you, if you look at Janet, I just did this because I was, you know, comparing Janet to somebody else that was on the Olympia stage. And I think people sometimes only see these girls when they get to at that Olympia time, and they don't realize, like, Janet's been competing for us since 2013. That's 8 years ago. You know what I mean? She became a pro, and like I said, she, you know, again, worked her way up the ranks, you know, up the placements in the shows and stuff. She was second a couple times, and she came back and she was sixth but it's about not giving up and knowing that the only person you're competing against in this sport is yourself. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think on that same note, you know, advice for competitors in general is, like, you know, stop looking for the overnight success. I mean, this sport, the only sport where you can, you know, the way I always put it, right, is it's not like basketball or football where you get a touchdown or you get a basket and it means you win the game. That's not what we do here. You can win the game, you know, in the sense of, okay, you did, you know, the prep, you did everything right, you ate your meals, you did everything, you did do your absolute best. It doesn't mean you're the best on stage that day. So you got to understand that, you know, no matter what level of competitor you are, that there's levels to this. And, you know, like, there's so much behind the scenes that you don't even see. The shows where some of the people everybody pays attention to, all the top pros, you know, they got last place or something, and, you know, it's buried years ago now and nobody knows about it, you know, but there's years and years and shows and all this stuff that leads to where people get to that point. And that's really what it becomes. You know, for the first time competitor, it's getting off the couch and then learning how to train and learning how to eat and learning how to pose and then getting on stage. If you win, if you get last, you do it again. You come back better. You do it again, you know, over and over.
Yeah, well, that's another thing I always tell people, because I always say, you know, when Angelica entered her first Olympia, her and I were talking the year after that, or 2 years after that, when she won her first Olympia, and she reminded me that she was in the Olympia 2 years earlier, and she was in the 16th and under group. Right. And I was like, oh my God, because people just thought she came out of nowhere, you know, and ended up winning the Olympia. And same thing, she had been competing for many, many years before she ever got, you know, to that Olympia stage. And I think that's where, you know, athletes, I think sometimes they fall down, is that it's going to take time. You're going to have, you know, times you're going to get on stage and it's going to, you know, you're going to do great. And other times where maybe, you know, the quality is really good and you don't do as well, but it's all about not giving up on yourself. And every athlete at the Olympia stage will tell you it's all about, that's what it's all about, is about not giving up on yourself, not, you know, going right back to the drawing board and doing what you have to do and taking the feedback from the judges and making those and working on making those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing I want to touch on too, you know, why we got you on here, because I know what people are thinking in their heads somewhere is, you know, how important is posing? Okay. Because this is something that I talk about constantly. And I'll tell you from the stuff that I put on social media that posing stuff just gets so much attention. So many people have so many questions about posing, yet I still think that it's probably the most underlooked part of prep, right? Like, I think a lot of people, especially these days, think it's so much, all right, let me just follow the program, right? Let me get the training right. Let me get the nutrition right, and I'll be stage ready. But it really doesn't ever come down to that on stage, right? What I always say is, hey, do all your dieting, all your training right. You can look the best, but if you can't show it off the right way, it's not going to go in your favor. So how important, Sandy, is the posing?
Oh, the posing, like I said, I mean, I always, you know, Ryan, I talk about this all the time in my seminars. And I don't care what division you're in, whether you're in bikini or you're in men's bodybuilding. I don't think in all the 40 years that I've been judging has presentation been as important as it is right now. And I think I think the reason because of that is the quality, overall quality of every division has just increased so much that, again, just, you know, making sure that you present your physique to your best ability, you know, you have to be able to do that. And even it doesn't matter, again, when you're a first time competitor or you're an Olympia competitor, we see these common mistakes all the time. I mean, like with bikini, you know, we're always seeing girls leaning forward and they're pushing back and, you know, they're trying to show the judges that they're leaner in their hamstrings. And it's like, no, that's, you know, that's not what, you know, what you want to do. You want to present your physique because, like I said, if everybody around you is posing much better and showing their physique much better, even if you're better than you are, if you can't show it to the judges, you can't, you know, you know, the judges can't judge what we don't see.
Yep. Yeah. I was just going to say that quote, but you beat me to it because you said that at so many seminars. And I think that's the best quote is, you know, if you can't see it, you can't be judged.
No.
And posing is a art of, you know, hiding some of your weaker spots because no matter what level competitor you are, everybody's got their weak spots and really accentuating your strong points that makes you fit the criteria. And, you know, I think that's really important to note that, you know, you should be practicing posing the day you decide you're going to compete. Even if your show is 2 years away because you want to build muscle first, figure out your posing now. It's only going to pay off more. And posing is honestly the thing you can never really take your foot off the gas pedal on because, you know, as you get to the pro levels and beyond that, everybody is pros at posing, right? Everybody is doing
well,
better.
No, absolutely. And the one thing with posing, though, too, and bodybuilders will tell you this, you know, that's why you see bodybuilders always flexing their muscle in the mirrors after they get done with a set and stuff, because it actually helps, you know, to give some nice separation, to start to build that separation between your muscle bellies. And, you know, not so much that you want that in bikini, but you definitely want it in figure and women's physique. And, you know what I mean? The posing helps actually shape what your muscle is going to look like as you're training it. So posing is important, like you said, all along the way. And I just had one of the Olympia athletes that did the Battle of the Texas back in December. And again, you know, we had a head judge that from the Olympia that was there, and he actually adjusted some of her posing and gave her some tips. And if he wouldn't have, she, you know, placed like 8th or 9th at the Olympia, and she would not have been that high. It was her first Olympia. But by changing the posing a little bit, you know, and which was a reason to go to a show like a week or two before your big show, whether it's, you know, a regional show before a national show or a regional IFBB before, you know, before the Arnold's or the Olympia, and to get some feedback from the judges that, you know what I mean, that are the top judges in the industry.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I mean, the posing, it is overlooked, and it is so important. It's got to be the most important part of prep. You know, the rest of the stuff is just a method. You know, do the training, do the nutrition, all that. And then also understand that all this stuff has to be individual, right? Like, you know, we've talked about a lot of things. Just go for full circle here today. You know, you shouldn't be copying anybody in the sport of bodybuilding. Your posing will be different than the posing of your favorite pro, probably, because your physique is different. The way you got to train should be different. The way you do nutrition, you know, it's all got to be different and custom. And that's the kind of what we do on TeamFFLEX. I mean, we do everything custom built all the time. And that's something I've been an advocate on from the beginning, because I learned early on, like, hey, nobody's the same in any part of life, right? We don't have anybody out there with 100% identical DNA that's going to look the same, do the same things, eat the same things, operate the same way. Yet, you know, why are we doing that when we're trying to compete, or any type of fitness for that matter? Why would we get a diet and follow that because our friend did it or somebody? No, everything's got to be custom. And that really becomes the most important thing that I've seen. I've been to a lot of shows. You've been to way more than me. But, you know, I've seen a lot of shows. And I think the people that bring individuality to the sport are the people that do the best in this sport, because they carve their own path, and they're the ones that kind of, you know, end up setting the standard eventually.
No, I agree. And that's absolutely, you know, like you talked about, especially with nutrition and stuff, no diet, no, you know, nutrition plan can be the same for, you know, any two athletes. And as athletes mature, the same nutritional plan for them that they started with is not going to be the same 3 years from now. Right. You know, I think, and that's one thing that I am going to touch on here, because I think that's where, especially with young competitors into the sport, they don't realize how much, just as they put more development on and put more muscle on, how that in itself is going to change their metabolism, which is going to actually help them when they get ready for that next show. And you know what I mean? Because everybody, you know, again, and obviously I want everybody to compete, but you still have to take that downtime. And I think that's probably one of the things, though, that helped a little bit, because a lot of athletes, we were all on a force, you know, downtime last year. And I really think the athletes that really took, utilized that downtime to their best advantage by making the changes that maybe they wouldn't have taken the time to do. And I think that's why we saw so many athletes, their physiques look so much better toward the end of the year last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the number one thing. What else is there that, people really have a hard time with these days that we could help them with? I mean, at the end of the day, it really comes down to going to these seminars, going to these shows, these Spectrum events. I tell you, these seminars that you get here, it's a way better version of what we're doing right now. I mean, you can see in the comments, people are, hey, this is great. This is, people ask questions, all that. The great thing is they get to ask questions at the seminar too, right? And it's not just, you sometimes. Sometimes it's a couple judges or,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And we always have pros that are always willing to come and be part of our seminar. And that's another thing too. I think that's the part that's so nice for the amateur athletes, because a lot of times the pros are who they've been following on social media and stuff. And now they actually get, to meet them and interact with them and, ask them questions one-on-one, that they wouldn't have been able to do, to do otherwise. That's why I always think that it's nice when you have a pro show and an amateur show together, because it does give the amateur athletes that, that time to interact with, with the pros, the ones that they've been following, over the months and stuff. And hi, Miss Ashley, I can see her. She's, just joined us and stuff too. One of the things I do, let's talk on real quick too, is, and this is going to be totally a different direction, but one of the things I've gotten a lot of questions with is the qualifications for this year's national shows.
Yes.
Because last year, obviously they changed the qualifications because we had almost no regional shows in March, April, May, and in June, and only a very select few in even July and August. So they really loosened the qualifications. So they kind of still left them a little bit loose this year. So if you want to go to a national show, you either had to place top 5 in a national show last year, okay? Or you placed top 5 in in a regional, in a national qualifier in your area. So, if you did the Sacramento last year and you placed 4th, you're good for the national shows. Yeah. Obviously, if you do the Golden State in April and you place top 5, then you'll be good for all the national shows, this year. So it's either top 5 from a national show last year or top 5 from a regional show, a national qualifier, either last year or this year.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up, because I know a lot of people ask me every day. I get that question like right now and all last year. But yeah, that's really a good thing too. I mean, I think people don't also realize that this is a unique thing to this situation. Normally the qualifications are a lot more strict than that, right? Yes. It's usually 2. And so
it's top 2, and even at the national shows, it's only the top 2 from the national shows, except for the USA and the national. Then it's top 5. So now they've made anybody from any of our national shows, any pro qualifier across the board, as long as you were top 5. For the Masters, like the Masters Universe, the Masters Nationals, the Masters USA, all you had to do as an athlete is compete in a regional NPC show. Placement at that point doesn't matter. You know what I mean? You could have competed in Open, you could have competed in Masters. That will qualify you for any of those Masters, national shows.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. And it's a huge advantage. I think, this is at least my opinion for anybody watching, that if you are qualified, even if you got, 5th in a class, go to nationals. And the reason I say this is, again, for the same reasons that you can do a lot of these Spectrum shows and it's really good to do them, is because of the feedback you can get, right? You never know where you need to stand until you get up on stage against people that are at the caliber you're trying to attain. So I know a lot of people, they spend a lot of time in the background waiting or saying, I mean, I hear from first-time competitors all the time that are saying, I've been trying to compete for 2 years, 3 years. I just never got ready to do it because I wasn't in the right spot. No, get yourself on stage, do a prep, get on stage, get your feedback, get better. You can't learn to swim if you don't put your foot in the water. And I think that's really important, no matter what. So anybody that's qualified now, go get yourself ready to do some nationals. Maybe go to, a Spectrum show or something like that first, get a little feedback. 2 weeks later, hit nationals. But keep competing. I mean, everything's going on crazy in the world. It's not going to change. What is going to change is your ability to, get out there and say, all right, I'm going to accomplish something. I'm going to set my goals. I'm going to make this happen. No more excuses, no more waiting. It's time. And 2021 is the year.
Well, and I also think too, and obviously, for both men and women, but I always talk to, a lot more women in our sport. I think too that sometimes women don't realize like how much they influence other people's lives. Obviously, the women in our sport that are mothers and stuff, first of all, they influence their children. Amazing. Their children grow up knowing how to eat healthy, knowing that physical activity is just a part of daily life. It's not like something you think about doing. You just know it's going to be part of your day. And obviously as a mother, that to me is like one of the most important things that you can bestow on your child is healthy living. But then also too, you don't know how many other people in your own workplace or that somebody that follows you on social media, you know what I mean? Like so many girls will tell me afterwards, like somebody contacted them or came to a show and somebody came up to them because they were following them on social media and they actually ended up making a change in their life because, of this person. And, I just think our sport, does that to so many. I mean, we mentor so many people and inspire so many people that we don't even realize.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also the thing people, can get caught up in is thinking that bodybuilding is only about you. You often hear quotes about it being one of the most selfish sports and all these things where it's all about you. It's only you, you shouldn't do it for those reasons, whatever. It's really not. I mean, you are in it for yourself to compete, your own goals, but you're also, in a lot of ways changing, the world. I mean, if you want, it sounds kind of dramatic when I say it that way, but you literally could, going out there, doing your thing, competing. That could take somebody who has, 200 pounds to lose in the audience. They're watching, they see you on stage, they say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to lose weight. Maybe they don't get to stage, but maybe they made their life healthier. And then they have a whole circle around them that, they got healthier because it's a ripple effect. It's crazy that, there's no limit to. Don't forget that even though bodybuilding can seem like it's an individual thing, it's not. It's a community of people that are just like you, and the effects that you have on the rest of the world can be really dramatic.
Well, and you know what? And just like you said, I mean, obviously, it's the one person that goes to the gym to do the work and that, but I don't think there's anybody, or there's very few that they're an island in this community, in this sport by themselves, because, it's usually, your spouse, your second, your better half that's helping to support you by taking up some of the slack, when you're getting ready for prep and stuff. Your kids, obviously, like I said, they get to see what you're doing and stuff, and things around them might get changed up a little bit. So that's why, when somebody wins the Olympia or somebody wins a title, that's the first, they're always wanting to thank obviously their immediate family, their friends, everybody that has supported them, because they know, most people realize that you're never going to get to that, stage or get that pro card without the people, your support group around you, which again comes back to the teams. I think that's the reason that the teams flourish so well once they started to becoming part of our industry, was because they're just like an AA group, or, they're like any other support group. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think the teams are great too, because the thing is, we're all technically in competition with each other, right, in this sport. It's an interesting thing, because even if you have teammates, if they're in your class, you're competing against them. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, you both get to win today because you're both here and you both did the prep. No, everybody's competing against each other on every level, right? Coaches are competing against each other with their athletes, everything else. But you wouldn't find still, even then, a community that's stronger than a community of people in the sport of bodybuilding. It's crazy, right? like coaches support other coaches and they'll help other coaches at, posing, whatever. And you'll see athletes that are competing against each other help each other with whatever they're doing at the show. I mean, it's just a great thing to see that it's become such a community. And I mean, in the time that I've been doing this, it didn't used to be as much of communities now. And I feel like, I keep saying this is the year, this is the time. If you're trying to do, contest prep in any regard, get on stage, do it. Don't wait, until things seem different. Things might be, whatever way. You could wait the rest of your life if you're going to do that. What you got to do is set your goals, get out there and go get to the stage, because you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your family. You're doing it for your friends and anyone who could ever see you or pay attention to what you're doing.
And you know what? You're right, Ryan. Like I said, I have seen so many, women that are part of a team, and, obviously when they get on stage, they're going to be competing, against each other and stuff, but they're backstage helping each other, supporting each other. And the same thing with the coaches. I'm always amazed. And we're really fortunate with TeamFFLEX, but, with Kim and Body Bio and Jamie, Fit Body Fusion and Pro, because the coaches all get along together. And if one of yous aren't there, I often see another coach helping, one of your athletes and vice versa. And like I said, I think that is what I think when athletes see that, it only makes us better as a community. And, and also it shows, athletes that they want to stay part of this because of that camaraderie and stuff.
100%. It's the greatest sport in the world. And nobody will ever be able to change my mind on that.
Well, somebody just said that they lost their overall at the universe to one of their teammates and still felt like they won. Yes, absolutely. Because the thing is, you each know, what each of you have gone through and stuff. And so even though it's not you, it's still somebody that you supported along the way, and all the trials, and obstacles they overcome. So you have to feel proud that, that it was somebody that, that you helped get, or supported to get to there.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. All right. So what else we got, Sandy? Anything else?
When we talk about, really quick, when we talk about the Golden State, which will be the first, Northern Cal show, it'll be April 9th and 10th. And like I said, right now we know that we're going to be in the ballroom at the Lions Gate. We're just not sure about audience yet, but last year they started the live stream with the Gov Cup at the end. And so they're going to continue with live streams, for families and friends that can't come to the show or not able to because of restrictions. And John was just talking to me this afternoon because, in California, it's the tier color thing and stuff. So we're hoping that maybe as we get closer to April, that our tier will change a little bit and we'll be able to have at least a little bit of an audience. I mean, we're really fortunate to have Kevin and Wendy from Texas, who are expediters, because Kevin manages a 45,000 square foot LA Fitness. So he's always up. Yeah, he's always up on whatever the CDC guidelines are. Cause that is one thing. We were so fortunate last year that, it didn't seem like any of the that we did not help transmit any COVID, to the community or to our families and friends and stuff. And so, he's really good at helping us maintain the 6 feet, distance backstage. As far as John knows, it'll be the same as last year. Everybody will have to wear a mask, at least right now, backstage. But once you're on stage for the individuals, you'll be able to, be without your mask. So I tell the girls and the guys, and everybody got really good at this, about wrapping it around their wrist. And that way you keep it with you. It's not touching anybody, anybody else. And then hopefully as we get closer, we'll find out, if we can have an audience. And, maybe we'll be a little bit lax on the, on the mask and stuff as far as the athletes, go. Maybe they won't have to wear them backstage. But right now, we're telling everybody to plan on masks except for, for on the stage.
1, 2, 3.
Yep. And, you know, like last year, you guys were very successful in every event that went on. You know, there was no problems. Everything worked. You know, I sent a bunch of athletes to you. They all had a good time. I didn't hear from anybody saying, you know, oh, it didn't feel safe, or we were concerned about this, or I couldn't find you know, a sanitizer, or the protocols weren't followed. Everything was, you know, very good even last year when you guys were trying to figure it out. And here we are now in a new year where you're already a pro at it. So anybody out there who's, you know, kind of worried about that, if you're, you know, one of the people that, you know, are worried if the protocols are followed 100%, I can say for sure that they absolutely are at Spectrum. So that's really important.
And from the NPC standpoint too, we always say, I mean, even though we're saying to athletes, you don't have, you know, you won't have to wear a mask on stage, because most athletes don't want to. But if you are an athlete that you feel more comfortable with, maybe you have an underlying, we have athletes with disabilities and stuff that compete for us. Maybe you have an underlying condition that you need to be careful, or you're going home to someone that you want to protect. Please wear the mask. It is never going to affect the judging. And I think, you know, I know, you know, Tamer with Muscle Contest, I mean, they, you know, they struggled down, you know, down south last year because they never were able to have an audience, and yet Muscle Contest never stopped putting on their shows, even though it was very limited, you know what I mean, and stuff. And I will tell you, because I, you know, obviously I get emails from every, you know, from every athlete, no matter whether it's a show I'm not at, a national show. I will tell you, last year, I don't think anybody ever complained about anything that happened at a show. I was truly amazed at how resilient the athletes were and how appreciative. I think most of them, because so many of our athletes are professionals in their own right. And so they knew like what the promoters were going through, you know, trying to get the shows, you know, to take off and stuff. And, you know, they were just so, like I said, every time they were just more appreciative that the show went on than that they had to wear a mask backstage, or they, you know, they had to stay 6 feet apart, whatever it was. And like I said, I'm hopefully as the year starts off, we're going to still see some of that. You know, I'm hoping by the time we get to July, you know, July, August, that you're going to see a lot, you know, a lot more opening up here, you know, here in California.
Good. Yeah. And again, that shouldn't hold anybody back from competing. You know, sign up, register, do it right now. If you're thinking about it, do it. Just register right now while me and Sandy are talking. Get on there, set your registration, set a goal. It's 2021. It is time. Get yourself on stage. The shows are going to go on.
Well, and yeah, absolutely they will. And like I said, promoters, even in areas, you know, the Northwest had a really hard time with, you know, Washington and Oregon and stuff. And so we had athletes, you know, it's funny, athletes traveled everywhere in the country where, you know, where promoters were able to get, you know, to get the shows off the road. And obviously our nationals was one of our better nationals despite the pandemic. And the Olympia, while not obviously the numbers that you normally see, especially because of the international, the Olympia was just such a great way to end the year, because it, I mean, you know, obviously Jake and Wings of Strength did an amazing job just getting it off the ground, especially having to change, you know, cities at the last minute. But the production with, you know, with Tamer El-Gindi, the stage was, I think, blew everybody's mind, you know, at the level of production that they saw.
Yeah, and it's going to only get better from here. I mean, the sport grows every year. It's getting better and better. You know, it's the time now. It's keep going, keep competing. Everybody needs to keep rocking it. So what else we got, Sandy? Anything else?
No, obviously just a little bit about wellness. Wellness is obviously our new division.
Yeah, talk about everybody loves.
Yeah, and wellness, obviously at the USA, wellness was our second biggest division for the women. You know, bikini obviously was the first, but then wellness overtook figure and women's physique. And, you know, part of that is just because the structure of wellness, I think, fits so many women. Women aren't born with wide shoulders and narrow hips. You know, most women are born with narrower shoulders, wider hips. It's for childbearing. It's the, you know, it's the evolution of mankind. And so wellness is just going to fill a niche for a lot of women because, you know, again, these are generalizations, but most women have an easier time putting muscle on in their lower body. You know, and so even in bikini, because you always want balance, whether you're doing bikini, figure, women's physique, it's always at balance. So most women are always trying to add that little bit of balance to their, you know, more so to their upper body, you know, than their lower. And now wellness is going to provide that niche where, you know, if your upper body isn't quite up to where your, you know, your lower body development is, wellness is perfect for you.
Yeah, I love wellness. You know, it's been one of my new favorite divisions to coach for. And I've been saying I think it's going to overtake bikini eventually. I really think it will. I mean, I knew it was going to be coming up second, you know, as far as attendance eventually. I expect we're going to see that go through this year for sure, because there are so many people, you know, getting ready for wellness, thinking about wellness, wanting to do wellness. And I think it's a really great new division, you know, where we're going to see this thing kind of shaping out right now. And as people start competing in it, you know, we start to see more of the criteria. We start to learn more about what's actually on there, you know, and obviously everybody can figure out the division rules and all that on npcnewsonline.com. But it's great to actually get out there and compete in it and, you know, just see how you actually stack up. And a lot of people are on the line all the time saying about should they be doing bikini or should they be doing wellness? So what kind of advice might you have for somebody, you know, regarding that?
Well, first, it goes right back to what we talked about. First of all, don't worry about whether you want to do bikini or wellness. Get your body in its best condition for you at that point. And then when you go to a regional show, you can compete in both bikini and wellness. Cross over. You'll see how you stack up, because it's a different look. Both of those divisions are so different. But once you see your, you know, your photo with the other athletes, it'll give you an idea of where your structure is probably gonna, you know, take you with. And real quick, somebody just said about talking about suit design with crystals. Okay. Yes. Real quick. The more crystals are not the better. Okay. Some crystals, absolutely. But you can actually get to the point, we're actually seeing girls that have so many rhinestones and crystals on their suits that it can actually reflect off the light and give like an aura around themselves. It could actually take away a little bit from your definition. So no, some crystals look amazing, but just because you can put some on, you don't need to put 1,000 of them on. Just, you know, just a little bit. But getting back to wellness, I just think, like I said, it's going to be interesting. I think I always say to everybody, like, you always want to look at the Arnold, obviously not so much this year, but like how the end of the year with the Olympia, I always say you look at the Olympia athletes, the top 5 in every one of those divisions. That kind of gives you an idea of where the sport is headed. Like those athletes, whether you're bikini, classic, it tells you that they're probably like right at that top mark of how big you should get, how conditioned you should get. So you have an idea of where, you know, your structure should go as far as size and conditioning. You know, and obviously in wellness, there was not wellness last year at the Olympia. It'll be this year at 2021. So again, even if you can't get there, I'm assuming they're going to live stream. You want to live stream the Pittsburgh Pro, because that is going to have wellness there. That will be the first IFBB wellness, you know, pro wellness this year. And it's going to be amazing because, again, I don't know, I'm just taking a guess here, but I have a feeling a lot of those athletes that got their pro card last year, both, you know, international and from the US, a lot of those top athletes are going to show up at the Pittsburgh Pro. So it's going to be really, I just have a feeling it's going to be super competitive, but it's going to be interesting to see which body, you know, out of those top women, which body ends up, you know, taking the prize home in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I think this actually segues us into a good thing to say in general about any division is kind of what you were saying. You know, you look at the top competitors, and that's kind of the criteria and the standard, right? This is what I always tell athletes. I'm saying that's really what the judges are telling us by the way they've placed them at Olympia. And, you know, since we don't have Wellness Olympia yet, you know, these top pro shows, you can see almost the same kind of thing. And that criteria doesn't necessarily say, okay, you need to be that person to compete or do well. But that criteria does trickle down, you know, through all stages of, you know, true novice to open to whatever. The criteria that you guys are looking for at the top is the same criteria all across the board. I think a lot of people get in their head that, okay, that's for them. Where am I at? What do I need to be? You know, it's different. No, the way you guys are judging, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, is the criteria is the criteria. theory, the quality just gets better the higher athletes go.
You know what, Ryan, you couldn't have been, absolutely. Because sometimes, and it still happens, we've been really working on it, so you don't see it as much now as you did like 10, 15 years ago. But lots of times I would have an athlete that come to me and say, you know, he did a regional show and he didn't do well, but he was told he's too good for the regional show. He needs to go to nationals. I'm saying this live on thing. That's the most stupidest remark I have ever heard in my entire life. If you're that good, you should be winning every regional show. I always tell judges when I do seminars, I tell judges, okay, if you're telling me a men's physique is too big, is he bigger than Brandon or Raymond? If he's not, then he's not too big. The same thing with bikini. I think sometimes, you know, you do get athletes that are athletes most of their life. They come from different sports, you know, and they graduate from college. And now the NPC, though, gives them a place to compete. Otherwise, that their competition time would be over. Well, they're already going to come in. You know, they're already going to come into the sport with a good amount of development. So, yeah, I could see them going. And we've had this, you know, at the Spectrum a couple times. You've had a true novice that comes into the sport, and they do true novice, open, and they win. I had this maybe 6-7 years ago at the Southern States. A teenager girl won the teenage, the novice, the open, and won the overall. And first thing I said to her mom when I met her, I said, where did your daughter get her lower body from? And she said, oh, well, she's been playing soccer since she's been 4 years old. You know what I mean? So there are, you know, athletes. I mean, we do attract a lot of athletes from other athletic, you know, from sports, like I said, especially as athletes get older and that competition, because they're out of college or out of high school, you know what I mean? That ability to compete, that competitive, you know, is no longer there for them. And so the NPC, you know, and the IFBB provides that for a lot of athletes, you know, the competition part for a lot of athletes. But if you're that good, you should go in and win your first, you know what I mean, your show, and then move on there, not be penalized because we're looking for a different standard. We're not. We're looking for the same thing across the board.
Yeah, and that's huge. I think it's so important to say that. And, you know, that is funny that you bring up the athletes, you know, from other backgrounds coming into the sport, because I'm seeing that a lot with wellness. Obviously, I'm coaching a lot of wellness athletes right now, trying to get everybody ready for this season. But a lot of the ones that are already, you know, kind of, you could say, have a better starting point are people that were doing track and field, or they've been lifting weights forever. And, you know, it's these women with these just jacked lower bodies already by nature. And then it's like, okay, well, this is really good, because a lot of them, you know, trying to fit to bikini, before you'd have to like not lift legs for a year. Like you'd have to not go to the gym and do any legs. You do some cardio, if anything, to try to burn the muscle off your legs, because you just simply couldn't compete. So wellness is opening a lot of doors for, you know, the women's divisions. And I think it's going to be a huge, huge thing. And I'm really excited to see how, you know, it's shaping out. Obviously last year we got a couple glimpses into how things are moving, but I think always, you know, it takes a few years, in my opinion, for to really see how this division actually shapes out, because as right now, as wellness is here and it's the new exciting thing, there's people that may have wrote competing off for a while because they couldn't get to, you know, bikini development, that lower, you know, that lesser development for the lower body. In other words, they wrote it off, and now they're going to come out and we're going to see all types of different physiques and pros turning at all the nationals this year, and all these things that are going to just really bring a whole new perspective to this division, which is very exciting, and also why you should compete in it, right? You should get out and help shape this division.
You know what? We're going to end up, I know I'm going to end up losing our time here, but somebody just wrote in and said about Raymond or Brandon, when you see them in person, they don't look near, they look so much bigger on stage. You couldn't be more, that's more true than anything, because I just actually did a seminar. And not unbeknownst to me, I always, when I use athletes, you know, photos on my seminar, I always cut everybody's head off. But I was showing about an athlete from wellness, and she actually happened to be in the audience, and she started to laugh. Yeah, we started to talk, and I knew it was her, but I'm like, oh my God, you're women on wellness. She looks so big on stage, and I'm looking at her going, you're the tiniest little thing. Because it does. But this, even, you know, even for me, who have been obviously judging athletes for 40 years, it takes you by surprise sometimes. And, you know, the person that wrote that in is absolutely right. You know, the athletes look so much bigger on stage. And that's the only reason why I say, when you're looking at the gallery, you have to be able to know, you know, to know that in time. And yes, Pittsburgh is very much going to be missing Dino. Was somebody that was big in Pittsburgh and a lot of, you know, did a lot for the sport and stuff. And he had just passed away recently. But yeah, the stage does, you know, and the photos does make everybody look a lot bigger and harder. So you do have to be able to, you know, to put that in perspective in your mind.
Yep, absolutely. I'm, you know, very excited for wellness. Obviously, I've thought for a while that you guys need that, and it's great. It's here now. It's like it was just a while ago that it was announced, and we're already, you know,
I know.
2 years since it was announced.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get cut off here. And so Ryan, I want to thank you and TeamFFLEX for being, you know, part of the show today, but also obviously supporting Spectrum Fitness Productions, and for everybody that joined us today.
Yes.
Most of you all have my email. So if you ever have any questions, please feel free to email me, and also contact, like I said, Ryan Milton with TeamFFLEX and, you know, the online coaching.
Thank you. Thank you,
Hey,
guys.
take care. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.